Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat episode 343, featuring an interview with Joe and Hannah of Whalenought Studios. Now you might remember my interview with them about their Serpent and the Staglands game, which turned out great. Now they're back to talk about a new project called Copper Dreams. This is a cyberpunk themed role-playing game. And I think it'll be really interesting to you. If you haven't heard about it, or if you've been on the fence about pledging to it though, you really need to get moving. Maybe even before you watch this interview, head over to their Kickstarter page in the show notes. They got 6 days left to go, and they're trying to raise $8,000 still. So hopefully this video will help with them to that goal, and maybe even get into some of their stretch goals. Anyway, I think you'll find this project really interesting, so without further ado, here is Joe and Hannah. All right, guys, I am here with Joe and Hannah, who you might remember from the Serpent and the Staglands interview I did with them not too long ago. Now they're back to talk about their Copper Dreams Kickstarter project. So how are you two doing today? It looks like a lovely day out there.
It's really nice, yeah.
It is. It doesn't look like you think Seattle would be.
Yeah.
We've actually had a string of super sunny days.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you haven't been spending too much time in the basement doing the Kickstarter stuff.
Most of our time, but...
So notice you've got 8 days left to go on this. I checked this morning and you were up to probably maybe you already hit it by now, but you were getting close to 32,000. Trying to get to a $40,000 point. So how are you feeling at this time? Is it going as well as you expected? Are you worried about it?
I think, you never know what to expect going into a Kickstarter campaign. I think our hopes ranged from wildly high to just bombing completely. Our expectations, not hopes. But I think it's going well. Of course, it would have been nice to hit our goal on day one and not have to worry about anything, but I think we're going to make it.
I think there's sometimes a push at the end. I know we had that on our Serpent one. I think we did really well with that, so here's to hoping for that. But our marketing we're not great marketers. We can really, yeah. So I'm sure we could have done some things better probably throughout the campaign, but I think it's going okay.
Yeah.
People seem excited for those who have seen the page.
Yeah, I see a lot of excitement. I was just wondering how you would compare it to the Serpent and the Stagland, that funding process.
I mean, that was, we didn't realize at the time, but we were exceptionally lucky in that on our second day, Larian Studios did a shout out for us in one of their Kickstarter updates, and I'd say a large portion of our funds and attention came from that.
Yeah.
We didn't realize that at the time how nice that was. So it's hard to compare because it's just dependent on what kind of attention you get, how many people have seen the page. But it's really interesting. We have fewer page views this time around. Yeah. But more money. So.
Yeah, people seem to like the physical rewards, but we have a pretty good ratio of people that actually stop at the page. They back a lot better ratio than our Serpent one, but just not that many people have seen it. I think the Kickstarter, it's getting smaller and smaller numbers too, which isn't helping.
Yeah, a lot of people I talk to these days talk about Kickstarter fatigue.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're seeing some of that.
Yeah, definitely.
But we were greenlit. I think in 14 days, which was really exciting. So it doesn't seem like there's Steam fatigue. Yeah. So that'll be good.
I'm just thinking about that John Romero project. Remember that not too long ago? That was surprising.
Yeah, that was just recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a couple of those. And I had actually talked about a few on at the end of my Matt Chats to do that little news, news from the Matt Cave segment. A couple of them, I had the news items ready to go, and before I even got to the episode, they had already taken them down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, give it a chance, right? I mean,
the Romero one, I liked. He had a little Star Wars motif in the first part, and that was kind of fun. But I think he said that he just wanted to put some gameplay footage in there, which that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's what we did, but we have nothing but alpha art in there now. But it's something to show that there's an alpha imminent. But yeah.
I think you guys are surely close enough. I mean, like you say, there's always that boost at the end. It wouldn't surprise me if it maybe even got into some stretch goals.
Oh, that'd be
nice.
wonderful.
Last time, I think we made about 30% of our total in the last 3 days.
Yeah.
So we're hoping for something like that to happen again. And we're keep emailing people.
Yeah. Mailing journalists is a nonstop thing, and most people don't really cover you, I don't think, until you've been funded usually to kind of make that a little safer to talk about, or
maybe it's just before.
Yeah,
those bastards.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah, rock paper shotgun. I think if they don't cover us, it's not for lack of emails we've put in their inbox.
Yeah. And, not many people knew about Serpent anyways. We didn't even have a Metacritic, I think, for that. So we're still we're pretty as small as you can get to even cover. But, yeah.
But we're happy we're on your show.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? There's probably genius designers out there with incredible ideas and hardworking and all that, but they just don't have that marketing savvy.
Yeah.
So we never even hear about their project. It's sad. We
should have done all smoke and mirrors and concept art.
Yeah, we thought about doing kind of a kitschy live action trailer, but we just didn't think we could pull that off.
No.
We're not.
You could show yourselves wearing the Oculus and just sort of.
Ooh, yeah, hey, yeah. Real life, yeah.
Well, one of the comments I saw on the site, I don't remember if this was on your side or the Kickstarter page, but you said that on there somewhere that you learned a lot from the feedback and experience that you gained working on Serpent. So I was wondering what in retrospect, what did you think, what were the strengths and weaknesses of that project, and how did you grow, I guess, is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, well, I mean, Serpent, I think, that was our first big, RPG, at least to this scale that we published. And, we learned a lot about how much time it really takes to do these things. And, we wish we had an extra couple months to tidy things up at the end that we had to do, after it was released. But we have all that. And we kind of learned, I think really importantly, what we wanted, I guess, the systems to work as for the kind of RPGs we want to make, which is kind of more of an adventure RPG hybrid. And that's kind of how we came up with this more simulationist kind of rule set in P&P terms. And I think formatting all the mechanics and systems to be in this new rule set we're making that we're calling Burning Candle, I think is the biggest response to Serpent, because people had a lot of feedback on the combat itself and how things were kind of organized and kind of overarching systems that we didn't really, we put things in that we thought would be really fun, but maybe they didn't all mesh well together. And I think this new rule set is kind of an answer to that I think will work really well with the kind of RPGs that we want to make.
I think the other part of that is that was our first time using the Unity engine. And through those year and a half of development, it has a lot of limitations and quirks. And I think that through that we got a handle on it. So I think going into this next game and the expansion, load times will be faster. Yeah. A lot of performance updates, things like that will be nice too.
I think the first thing we did was make sure we could load, because we're using 3D now, and the first thing we wanted to make sure is, can we load an entire district map in like a couple seconds? Yeah. And we optimized as much as we could to figure that out. So now load times are spot on.
Yeah,
they're good.
Important to us.
Solve that problem. Yeah.
Well, obviously this is a much different setting than Serpent in the Staglands. I saw you described it a couple different ways. I think, Hannah, you described it as sort of a 1970s, 1980s sci-fi view of the future, something like that, pre-internet, which to me is pretty interesting. I noticed, I was a little intrigued, I guess, by this comment that you basically are playing Kurt Russell. Is that like this, just call me Snake?
Yeah.
Right. Is that what you're...
That's exactly what it
80s action movies is kind of the influence for a lot of it. I mean, it's kind of a gritty it's a gritty kind of world we set up, but it's also supposed to be pretty cheeky.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the campiness of 80s movies. I think one of the lines in the trailer is something about, you need to turn up the heat.
Yeah. We tried to have some fun with it, but yeah.
To make it that campy style. I mean, in Escape from New York, Snake Plissken's running around in the leopard print white baggy pants. And
military
like
jacket.
Not taking itself too seriously.
Yeah.
Let me see. So this world that it's an island, right? It's an island. Which I'm kind of wondering if there's some sort of political commentary that you guys are putting into this one, because we got this colony called Kalatana, right? Am I pronouncing that right?
It's Calitana.
Calitana,
Yeah.
which is a U.S. colony, which is kind of controversial already, right? So, I mean, are you guys trying to inject some sort of political elements into this?
When you have sci-fi, it's opposed to fantasy. When you have sci-fi, it's difficult not to kind of tread on making some kind of commentary and kind of a reflection of how the world actually works. But it's supposed to be a very Earth itself is supposed to be extremely dystopian. I'm sure. I mean, we did a lot of research to kind of figure out what the background to be.
I don't think we're intentionally making any political statements.
Yeah.
I think with dystopian society, it's hard not to unintentionally make one, though. I mean, we're looking at people's fears of a surveillance state, which is very pertinent to all sorts of things happening now with government laws and everything.
Drones, yeah.
Drones, people hacking into or the government be able to read the info on your phone, things like that. And so I think that's a part of this world is fear of being watched, and that these syndicates are kind of overlords and they can see what you're doing. It's very 1984-esque.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point of your character you play as, you get drafted or abducted, however you want to perceive that in the beginning of the game, and you get sent to Calitana as a draftee, and you get picked up by one of the syndicates, and the whole purpose of it is kind of so like you can't really escape the system of being watched throughout the game, but you're also an active part of it. Like, your character is taking photos, doing research on other syndicates. It's kind of an endless cycle, and it's not something you break throughout the game. You just kind of learn more about it and find out some mysteries and stuff. But it's kind of supposed to be kind of like the Brazil Ducks, if you remember that movie. That was in the 80s too.
Brazil, yeah.
Oh, just the whole thing is just an endless cycle of chaos and ducks and badness.
And so is the idea that this is inevitable, that we're moving towards this kind of dystopia, or is it more like, hey, if we don't stop doing, X, Y, and Z, this is how we're going to end up, player, wake up, player?
Yeah, right. I think in a lot of ways, I mean, we're not trying to have that big of a message, but I guess looking at it in a lot of ways, this has already happened. We just kind of accepted it. I mean, most people put all their information online anyways with, I guess, Facebook or photo Instagram things, and the government, what's stopping the government from looking at that? And then, of course, Apple, I know, just kind of had some issue where they're trying to get the FBI off their back. But I think in a lot of ways, a lot of this stuff's already happened, and this is kind of just a cheeky look at it as if the internet hasn't existed yet, and what that means, because everything's very physical. Like, there's no internet for you to spy on, but maybe there's rats in the game that have cameras on them. Who knows? And that's kind of fun.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So how would you distinguish this? I think you've already done this to some extent, but trying to distinguish this game from, say, Underrail, came out not too long ago, or the Shadowrun series. Or would you say there's any really big breaks between your game and those in terms of setting?
I think I haven't played Underrail much more than the intro level. We don't have a lot of time to play a lot of games, unfortunately, but I think it's a little grittier than Shadowrun. And it's not mission-based, which is a little different.
I think Shadowrun kind of uses a little more of a Blade Runner-y kind of world. With lots of neon lights and stuff, and I guess similar to the P&P rule set, I guess is kind of inevitable if you're going to look at a cyberpunk one. You look at, I guess, Cyberpunk or Shadowrun or something, but there's no fantasy involved in it. I think Underrail, I guess, could be kind of a similarity. I think that's supposed to be pretty gritty. Again, I only played, I guess, a few hours of that. But
I think our visual influences are a little bit more post-World War II, Escape from New York, less pretty glowing purple and pink lights, and maybe more just a little bit of dystopian despair.
We looked at a lot of World War I, World War II kind of military tech for a lot of the kind of things people use. And so our original idea, you save the game with a radio. You have to call in to save. That could alarm people around you if you're not careful. And our original version of that was one of those giant World War II backpacks with like the landline looking thing you pull out of it. And we modeled that, but the character looked so goofy we had to get rid of it. Looked a little too funny. But
so this game, you start off playing, I guess, a main character that's already created for you, and then you create some other characters, or recruit some. I mean, how does it work
You create,
Part.
the game starts with character generation. You're being interviewed by somebody from the government to be sent off, and you kind of choose, I guess you choose through background traits and appearance and a few other stats based off that. You have aptitudes and proficiencies you can choose from, and then your virtues are your main stats. And you choose all those, and then you get sent off. And then from that point on, there's a few key instances where you can kind of level up more your base stats, but you're mostly just doing a lot of training, and then you can recruit other agents or other people you find on the streets to join you.
Yeah, you can have up to 3 party members.
Yeah.
And then anyone you're mind controlling.
Yeah. So so up to four, including your guy, and then mind control people.
So the NPCs, I guess you'll be able to recruit some of those, and
Yeah.
they'll have story elements or.
Yeah, one of the things we wanted to do this time around was have a lot more NPC conversation and be able to talk to them more.
Okay, cool. So it seems like the biggest draw for this game is the combat. Would you say that's accurate? This really detailed, tactical
And the combat
system?
Yeah,
really interesting.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out something that's going to work really well, and we're still kind of in the alpha stages of it, but a lot of our testers are having fun with it, and it's kind of hard to compare to a lot of games. I don't know if you play a lot of JRPGs. There's an old one, I think they made a lot of them. I only played the first one. It's called Grandia. And it was a cute game, and the kids are the main characters, but the whole point of it was turn-based. But while you're taking a turn, it takes time to execute, I guess. And so if you're going to slash your sword, you have to you select that action, and then the bar continues to go, and then your guy runs over to the location, and then he takes time to actually do the attack. And then during that,
describe something as active time battle.
We haven't landed on a great name for it yet, but
we don't have one.
Yeah, I saw it described on the site: strategic turn-based combat with time-based resolution.
That's the long form. We're working on something snappier.
Yeah. That's objectively true, but yeah, it's not very marketing.
Is the idea this thing is going to be ticking, and you better do something quick because it's in real time, or
no,
is it you can pause it and just the actions take time within the.
It actually,
I don't even know what I'm saying.
No, that's fine. That might be what it looks like, but you only actually do things once your character's portrait kind of lands on the turn bar.
Yeah, so you'll start at the top of the turn bar, and then it takes 4 seconds to get down, which is basically emulating a round.
Yeah.
And so in this time, your character could get hit, could get stunned, but they're not doing anything. And then you hit this middle bar of this combat bar that's going down, and then you get to take your turn. So say you want to do a shot, a quick shot at somebody. So you select that, and then that takes 1 second for you to aim. So during that second, other people could be taking their turn, the world can be going, your target could move, or it could work out great.
Yeah. So it only pauses when you hit that area where you take a turn. So it's kind of like a normal turn thing where portraits are going in an order of initiative, except it's instead of just going in an exact order, everything's kind of moving down a timeline that can kind of get adjusted as it goes.
So yeah, it just adds a little tension, a little excitement.
So the enemies won't just stand there and let you carefully aim and shoot them. Well,
if it gets to once it's their turn and they see you aiming at them, they'll probably try to run.
Well, if they're in that top part, they have to stay there. But if they hit their turn and they see you lobbing a grenade in their direction, they have a chance to try to get away.
Yeah, this sounds like this will be a really key part of the gameplay, is thinking about time and how long it takes to do things.
I think a lot of that comes from we have a replacement for generic kind of health points. We have a wound system, which is kind of like if you played D6. There's a lot of role-playing games or P&P games that do HP alternatives, but the whole point of the wound system is you kind of carry around a lot of the wounds in combat that you can get from anything. And we wanted to kind of mitigate how often you're going to be healing that, and how long you really have to drag on throughout the game while keeping these wounds until you can rest somewhere or fully heal at a clinic. And so we had kind of time-based missions to figure out. They're not supposed to be stressful. They're kind of just supposed to be something you plan for. And so you've gotten hit in the arm or something, and that reduces maybe some aim and some other components. But the whole point of it is, okay, so now I'm stuck with this bullet in my arm, but I still have to complete this mission, and I can't rest because resting takes a whole day, and I only have, a half day to do this or something. And so it's just kind of meant to design some pacing that I think a lot of CRPGs don't have or can't have, because usually health points are just strictly for combat, and then once combat's over, there's usually an infinite amount of ways you can heal that, which is fine for a lot of games, but...
I think that's something, too, when we were designing Serpent in the Staglands, we wished we had some flexibility with time, because it is so much more fun to design these kind of quests where time matters and, the world is moving and everything. So that was something it was one of the first things we implemented into this rule set, having that as part of the world where things matter.
Yeah.
I got some questions about the wounds that were sent in, the wound system, but I actually like I guess it must suck to have a bullet embedded in you as you're trying to do a mission, but
sure.
I can see how that would add to sort of the psychological satisfaction of the game, right? Because you think, it's going to be so great when I complete this mission, because then I'll finally be able to deal with this wound situation.
Exactly, right.
So it's
just run head wounds,
Yeah.
And then you have to drag it out, or you're at the end of the mission and everything went probably pretty poorly. You did your best, but everybody's walking around with a few bullet wounds or scrapes or burns, and then as you're trying to leave, you get ambushed. And now in most games, that ambush would have been just another battle because you could have just healed before it. But now you've got all sorts of problems.
Yeah, and the ailments, they stay with you. And they're also body part specific. So if your arms are out of commission, that's really going to affect you. Or if your legs, all this damage went to your legs, you're going to be moving slower. And
it should be fun.
It's
a lot of fun coming up with
the
different names for a lot of them. I mean, that's always interesting, but yeah.
I can see some of the puzzles based around that concept, right? Maybe you have to chop off your legs to fit inside a doorway. That'd be pretty grisly.
Now you're thinking 80s action movie results.
Have to chew through your own leg or something. And it looks like the AI is pretty impressive too. Some of the things I was reading that you had planned. I don't know how much of this has actually been implemented, but at one point you said that they're going to be using all the same environmental mechanics and everything that a really smart player might use.
Sure.
I was thinking about that from a programmer's point of view. I mean, that must be really difficult to do.
It's once you figured out how to do everything for the players' characters, it's kind of just emulating that, but figuring out kind of different scripts for them to play through.
Yeah. It just takes planning and time, which is why we're doing a Kickstarter.
And when you have more of a simulationist system like we have, where your characters don't increase with just giant dice pools of different damage throughout the game, it's a little more like GURPS or something, but it's really important to have, I guess, enemies then be able to kind of utilize everything too, because that's how it's interesting. A grenade at level 1, or I guess there aren't levels, but a grenade at the beginning of the game could blow your character's legs off or something, and the same thing will happen at the end. It's just a matter of figuring out how to make more challenges with more interesting enemies that jump over roofs or have like spring legs that can get up to like 5 stories and chase after you and stuff. It's fun to design, but yeah, it is a little more challenging.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said earlier the combat seemed to be the big one of the big draws. I mean, maybe that's just because I love combat so much, but actually, I'm thinking about it. Maybe avoiding combat might actually be the
that's a big part too.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, so huge emphasis on stealth. I noticed in the video, you said you could hide bodies, move it around, sort of thinking maybe like a hitman or a castle.
Yeah, right. Right now we kind of have it set up where you can just, a body kind of clumps to the ground. You can actually just kind of put them in your inventory, kind of like a Ultima 7 or something. You can just put anything in there. You throw them in there and you can toss them in a locker or something.
Put them in a locker, somewhere where they won't attract attention.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is the idea that you could be sort of the run and gun, run into a room and toss in the grenade kind of gameplay style, or do the stealthy, Metal Gear Solid kind of thing, or is it, do you have to be stealthy?
Kind of depends on how you want your crew to be. I mean, the game you'll kind of play the game according to how you're set up with your crew. But yeah, you could definitely do both. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of what we're trying to make with the more simulationist thing, is if you're being really sneaky, you're not burning through ammunition and money and everything, and you don't need to be trading in loot for more ammunition and health to heal up all your wounds and stuff. Or if you are doing that, you're going to probably get more gear and more more loot to trade, but kind of solves itself.
And the other thing about it is that there is a sneaking proficiency that you can level up, but so much of it is just, crouching at the right times and hiding into lockers at the same time, or in the right times, and it's more just input oriented and not so much a skill that you're putting points into, so anyone can be sneaky.
Yeah.
Although if you're wearing really heavy armor and things like that, it's going to be a little harder. You're going to make a little bit more noise.
If you have a melee weapon, I mean, you're running right up there.
Yeah.
Taking in some bullets probably on the way, but yeah.
But it would be
Take it easy on the glitter and the spangles.
Yeah. Right.
It would be easy enough for your entire party to sneak past a guard while they're turning the wrong direction. It doesn't have to be something that you just specialize in.
Yeah, it's meant to kind of just be practical. The more simulationist system means like you don't want to just always run out in the open. Even if you are a combat heavy character, you're going to get blown away. So
I thought it was interesting, that idea of what would we call it, the last known sighting or something like that.
Last known position,
Last known position. That was an interesting. Looking at that, I thought, okay, I want to play around with that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Interesting.
The idea is it's supposed to be pretty fun to kind of toy with enemies. They kind of figure out, and they don't have kind of a group vision. So you could one enemy might know where your characters are, but another one might not, and so you can kind of play with how you can kind of guide them around to.
It'll put an indicator down where they think they saw you last, so you'll see a little indicator pop up, so you know where they think you are. But it kind of makes for more guerrilla tactics in fighting, instead of just standing there and shooting at each other until someone goes down. You can
the Snake Plissken. Yeah.
So you mentioned that a couple times, the word adventure. You want to put some puzzles in there and I guess sort of have an adventure game like element to it. How big of a, thinking about ratios, if you're thinking how much of it will be an adventure game, how much will be a stealth game, where would you put adventure?
Ratios.
I mean, that's hard because it also depends on how you play it. Yeah. Someone could skip past those puzzles or not try to do them and mostly do stealth like things, or just mostly do combat.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, we really like the puzzles in Serpent, and I think a lot of this is going to be a lot of overarching puzzles that are a little more like mission, that deal with your missions and the world and everything, and like the whole game, I guess, is in a sense kind of comprised of side quests and figuring out kind of the puzzle of how to do things. But like our dialogue system, for instance, is that's either kind of straight out of I guess not puzzle games, but you can drag inventory items into dialogue now. It's a little more straightforward and player focused, and you can figure out new branches with just different items and how to figure things out. And we have hacking to kind of open doors that normally wouldn't otherwise be there, and then we can have some other
pressure plate puzzles, that sort of thing. From
more pressure plates.
There should always be a pressure
plate puzzle.
Doesn't make a lot of sense why it's there, but
it never does.
Still fun to throw things down.
It's always great.
I laugh if there's a hidden object level in your.
Jeez, that would be fun.
Well, we do. To answer your question, we love making puzzles, so be rest assured there's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
I always love those in role-playing games when you have those sort of challenging puzzles, and if you take the time to solve them, you get some really nice gear or something like that. It just makes you feel so intelligent.
Yeah. I was trying to make them a part of the world. I think in the end, we're trying to make a combination of a pen and paper kind of role-playing game with maybe like an old LucasArts Indiana Jones or something. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the end goal, I guess.
Was that the rubber chicken on a pulley? Is that?
Which one was that?
That's from Monkey Island, right?
That's from Monkey Island, yeah. Those are great.
So I got a lot of people ask me about this, the leveling system and the aptitudes, and do you have any more information on that, about how these aptitudes will work and the proficiencies?
Well, we just had a post kind of detailing a little bit of that, but we can go over that. So at the beginning of the game, you create a character, you generate them with 3 backgrounds from back on Earth, and that kind of generates some initial minimum and maximum amounts of virtues that you can have, and those are kind of your main stat points, I guess, in kind of normal RPG terms.
Yeah, they're like logic, vigor.
Yeah,
very
overarching things that affect all your character's output. Mm-hmm. But throughout the game, you do during resting, either at a clinic, like at your syndicate, or out in some other district, kind of the equivalent of like a town, I guess, in a fantasy game. If you're wandering around, like in Darklands or something, and you stop at a town, this is where you could kind of do random jobs, or you could train. And in this case, training is kind of how you gain power throughout the game, kind of more short term rather than this giant mission level ups that you can get. And training, you can train anything from weapons to your other proficiencies like sneaking and stuff. And you have to, a lot of places just kind of have people you can talk to do that. And you can also kind of find secret ones.
Masters who can teach you new shot types, and sometimes they require money.
And kind of following the more simulationist thing, this isn't just giving you, I guess, more dice pool numbers for damage or anything. Those are pretty static, but it does give you new tactics. So for instance, if you have a rifle or something, one thing you could train for is instead of just being able to do like a single shot or a precise shot, is you could kind of do like a 3-round shot and you could get like 3 different enemies in that or something. So it kind of just gives you more variety for your characters, and you can kind of format them that way.
One of the things we talked about in this update we did, but we're not using XP. Instead, when you complete, so your job is you're an agent of asset inquiries for the syndicate. So your syndicate gives you these kind of overarching open-ended missions, and when you complete them, you get a couple of stat points to put wherever you will at any time. That
kind of works as a more traditional role-playing game kind of system, but we're just kind of like focusing it there. So during those missions, you can play however you want. You don't, whether you do combat or not, means you don't really have to worry about the XP. Yeah, since stealth was such a big part and it's so hard to reward stealth, what do you do? If you avoided this person, you get XP. So we had struggled with that, how we wanted to award XP. So we just decided it would be best to get rid of it and do more of a bigger kind of level up. Yeah. We tried a few different ways of figuring out how you could actually reward stealth. Like if you're in proximity and they know you're there, maybe we could figure out something like, oh, you avoided them successfully, but there's just too many ways to game that. And
I didn't even go inside the building. Wow, look how stealthy I am.
I know.
Yeah. I dodged everybody.
I didn't even know someone was there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things you said about this system was that players were going to have to go outside their comfort zones. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, a lot of since it's kind of more of a simulationist kind of system, I think that part we might have specifically been talking about. We kind of have a pass-fail thing, and this is kind of from Burning Wheel or mouse cards or something, but you have to take, for shots or any weapons or skills that involve a hit or a miss dice roll, you have to get a certain amount of hits and misses to be able to elevate yourself the next time you want to train for it. And so for like a pistol or something, you have to make a certain amount of shots that actually hit the target, and you have to make a certain amount that miss. Kind of the idea, like you have to fail to actually be able to learn from your failure, is kind of how that works in the PnP sense. So we're kind of doing the same thing, and we're kind of testing that to see how well it works. But a lot of it is going to be, a lot of the game is trying to figure out not the best way you can just breeze through stuff, because that's going to not do well. You're kind of just mitigating how much you're failing at a lot of these missions and a lot of these encounters that you get in, because you're going to take bullets. You just want to take as few as possible, or avoid them at all costs if possible.
I love this idea about replacing body parts with weapons. Ever since I saw Army of Darkness, or what was it, Evil Dead 2? I forget which one, but when Bruce Campbell puts that chainsaw, so we will be able to do that at some point in this game, right? Just replace all of our hands with chainsaws and become
pretty much, yeah.
You can do almost every body part.
Yeah.
Although if you take off your whole head, there's some consequences. You won't be able to talk.
Yeah.
So it might not be the best way to go, but you can replace your left arm completely. You can put parts into your right arm.
Yeah.
And then your legs, your torso, eyes, head plating, ears.
Yeah.
There's lots of choices.
Seeing the syndicate box in the background there on your bookshelf.
Oh yeah. So is it going to be sort of a syndicate like?
A little bit. Yeah, obviously love Syndicate. And yeah, a lot of that is going to be just trying to figure out how much fun we can have. We have like the harpoon arm, for instance, and that one you can grapple up onto higher buildings, or you can grapple people towards you,
Mm-hmm.
kind of pull them towards you. And so there's going to be some variety. But yeah, we're just having fun with that. I mean, obviously that makes no sense. So trying to make that a little cheeky, a little fun, but it should
Or
be
having,
interesting.
I think we've had some challenges where we think, okay, so you have a blade arm, but you need to be able to climb up onto a wall. So we're trying to picture how we're going to use that blade arm to, or like, how do I get something out of my pouch with my blade arm?
I could see them using it to like climb, like the little pirates who do in those movies, right? They stick the knife in the sail. And
Yeah, right.
something like that, maybe.
Usually I grab an item from my backpack with my left hand, but right now it's a chainsaw that's buzzing. So what do I do now? A few extra animations there, but I don't think it'll be worth it.
Now, speaking of animation, of course, the art direction is that's another way this game, I would say, looks quite a bit different than The Serpent and the Staglands. Is it taking longer with these new graphics, or is it?
Serpent paid for a few, well, we've had, I guess, up till now, kind of R&D to kind of figure out all the stuff that we need to do for this game. And the big one is, of course, going to 3D, obviously. And we needed to do that so we could kind of get height involved. We originally had 2D characters kind of overlaid over a 3D background, but those didn't end up working out. So we're kind of having this, I guess, low poly kind of character design, but it's still pixel art. So fortunately, the first few faces and characters were pretty much actually Serpent and the Staglands portraits, and then we just kind of like put those on top of 3D characters. We just kind of adapted it from there, and it actually turned out really well, and we're pretty happy with it. But it has taken a little bit of time to get used to 3D, especially doing characters and animations and stuff. But we're kind of in an alpha state with that now, and we think it'll probably turn out pretty well.
Yeah, and 3D goes faster in some ways too. There's so many animations that go into a 2D sprite. That 3D, you make an animation, and then you can use that animation just across the board.
It's nice not having to do 8 directions for every animation. It's a whole new world for me.
Yeah, a lot more customization options.
One walk cycle. That carries some weight.
Yeah, that's something there. So many people, I think, would assume, well, 2D must be so much easier than 3D without even thinking that, well, all those everything has to be custom animation with 2D, right?
Yeah, we hand drew everything for that, and so that took a lot of time to get a nice template going that we could kind of use for all the different character models, and that's a lot easier in a lot of respects.
I think what we didn't realize before going into this, but before doing 2D, most of these engines are set up for 3D, and actually trying to do 2D in them is worse for performance, and it's just got a lot of problems. I can't tell you how long it took us to find a way for the game to be pixel perfect, because no engines are set up for that except, I don't know, Game Maker maybe, but where the pixels don't overlap, and we ended up like shrinking the game down to a tiny size, projecting it on just a square, and then blowing it all the way back up so that it could be big. But there's just so many technical challenges that go into a 2D game, and part of the reason we want to do 3D is just to make our lives a little easier, and to make, I think the game is just better for it. There's less overlapping problems. There's less, I don't know.
Kind of solves itself with the height.
Yeah, it's more optimized. You wouldn't think that. You'd think pixel art would be a much easier way to do it, but it's not.
Yeah, that's what I say. People that look at these old classics from the 80s and 90s with the great pixel art, and like just to know the talent that it took and the skill to make it look as good as it did.
Yeah. Those had to take so long. I always liked Dark Sun.
Mm-hmm.
That one had great isometric art. I loved that game. But yeah, those had to take so incredibly long for all those different backgrounds. A lot of them did too. It was nuts.
I guess another upshot of the 3D is being able to make these 3D printings, right? And the little models.
Yeah.
You're showing for rewards. Those are really cool.
It still seems so weird that we're able to take a 3D model and then have it printed into like actual physical objects.
Yeah, we actually have. Right, sitting on top of my computer. This is one of the guys. Can I see
way
that?
close.
Oh, wow.
But we had a lot of fun. We made some early ones. We have a lot of little 3D printed guys hanging out.
Man, if I had one of those printers, I would be.
Yeah,
there'd be like thousands of those things back there.
Yeah.
We have them going to a site right now that prints these, but they turned out really well, and that's why we're kind of offering them as a Kickstarter reward.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun making them.
Yeah. I think we're going to include, we're having a post soon that'll have 3D diagrams of all of them that we're going to be printing. We even got a character from Serpent the Staglands in there. That'll be fun. And we have like 4 other characters in the game.
All right, so just a couple last questions here. Yeah, well, 3, I think.
Sure.
So this one's from Zombra from Twitter. Asks, what about the story structure? Will we see episodic, unrelated missions, or a more coherent campaign with an overarching goal?
I think probably more coherent, but it might not seem that way at first.
Yeah.
Everything ties together, and there's pieces of the overarching narrative in each one, but it's going to take maybe half the game or so to start to see the threads come into
they kind
one.
of converge. But I mean, like we said, I think we said this earlier, but yeah, it's structured kind of mission based. You get missions from your syndicate that you're doing, and they're kind of the equivalent of like find the water chip kind of missions, and they're really open ended in how you do that. And there's a select amount of those, but the whole game while you're doing it is kind of just a series of side missions. That was kind of our goal with Serpent, and now we're kind of refining that to see how well we can structure it.
Yeah.
So it should feel very open ended. Yeah.
So you're trying to avoid that real linear, point A to point B structure that we see in.
Yeah. Yeah, we like the idea of more of the pen and paper openness. Like, we don't want to give direct missions. You figure out how to do everything, and you're rewarded appropriately.
Although I think in this game, as opposed to Serpent the Staglands, there's a little more direction at the beginning because you have an employer, you have a job, you have kind of a home base. You get an apartment, which is just a giant shipping container. So you have a little bit more of a tether to the world at the beginning.
Yeah, that was important. We really liked, like in Deus Ex, when you start that game, you're employed by, what are they called, UNADCO or something? And you kind of go there after the first few missions, and people either are impressed or very unimpressed with the way you're doing things. And we always like kind of that. So we kind of wanted to fit some kind of structure like that in, but leave it a little more open.
All right, so my next question is from Sebastian Haig. He says, how about the difficulty? Will there be an easy mode? How much must you discover on your own?
If he's coaching us.
That was the claim to fame, right? It was so difficult. I think I died 3 times before I got the game installed.
Sure. Yeah, installing it is the first part. Not big believers in a story mode or an easy mode. And I think compared to Serpent, this game is, I think, just objectively going to be a lot easier because it's turn-based. And as long as the player is kind of utilizing practical kind of military simulation tactics that are pretty obvious, they should do fine.
I think in some ways it's going to be harder, though, because with the wound
harder.
Well, you can't heal as easily. You're going to be carrying these wounds around for longer.
Yeah.
It might be easier, like a combat round itself might be easier, but I think long term, you really have to marshal your resources. You have to think through things. You can't rest anytime you want to. So there's give and take.
Well, there you go. I was trying to be all marketing, but harder, easier, and
it's just different.
It is very different. I think it's kind of difficult to compare.
Well, folks, there you have Copper Dreams Kickstarter. Hopefully, I'll get this video up tomorrow. But if you're delaying for whatever reason, don't delay for long because you'll have less than a week to go support this.
Yeah,
I wanted to briefly mention a couple of these rewards that you can get. Right, so it's $250. You get the collector's box, which I noticed includes a code wheel dial. What is that all about?
So in the game, it's not like the traditional...
Is that copy protection?
No, it's not. We actually changed the name of it because after we wrote it down and sent it off, we're like, oh wait, this kind of existed already, and they're not what this is at all. It's kind of like it's one of those like World War II. What are they called? I'm forgetting.
I'm blanking on the name.
Rock-X.
Yeah, they are these long strips of paper, and they would print out 2 of them, and then you use the 2 and you put them on top of each other, and they create your code.
Yeah, it's kind of like original computers, how they used to always have to print everything. And
these long strips with all these holes in it. And these are things you're going to be using in the game digitally, but we thought it would be fun to actually print one and send it, and there will be a little GUI that you can open up and you can put your code strip against it. And
put it against the computer screen, and you can kind of figure it out that way.
That's cool.
Yeah, it should be really fun. It was fun to think of that. But
Yeah.
those are the kind of puzzles, I guess, you can expect to kind of see.
And then you talked a lot about the book. I still got the one from Serpent and the Stag Lands. So.
Oh, look at that.
But this one is going to have a wood piece on it.
Yeah, it's primarily made of wood.
Get it.
Yeah,
Here we go.
it's
Hold on.
Primarily made of wood, but it's bounded with leather, so we're still sewing the pages in, which is why there's a limited copy.
So where's this deerskin come from? Is it
That's
actually,
from
a
Minnesota.
hunter?
Minnesota. There's a leather
Minnesota.
that's based in Minnesota, and they have, you can just buy whole skins off them, and it's fun. You can look, and you're like, oh, this one has one hole, and this one just has two.
Yeah.
And,
They're all hunted, so, I assume
here we go.
for sport and everything. But
So this really is a unique collectible then.
Yeah, so we haven't, this isn't complete yet, but we also got this brand. This is your Syndicate's logo, and so we have this brand that we stamp in here, and there's the leather
Close enough.
sides.
So you get that for $75?
Yes.
Wow, that's that sounds like that's.
Well,
Are you losing money on that? I mean, it looks expensive.
It was kind of expensive to set up. We had a lot of kind of test versions that we did, but we came up with a pretty good system. And, we know the Kickstarter thing's kind of a donation, but we also didn't want to charge too much for them. And we love doing them. I think it's so fun to have a physical component to go with these things.
And we're hoping someday in 30 years we'll just have a giant bookshelf lined with all of our journals from our games.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That's great. I love the artifacts. Great for collectors like me, to have.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I always thought it was it was such a shame when games just went to digital download only and you don't even have boxes anymore.
Yeah.
So I love what you guys are doing with all these collectibles.
Oh yeah, we really like
it too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the reasons we wanted to do a Kickstarter as well, instead of just trying to pitch to a publisher or doing early access, is that we really we had all these reward ideas, and we just wanted to.
We're probably good on the Kickstarter just for rewards if we wanted to. There seems to be a market for them. So.
Yeah.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, right, yeah.
All right, well, thanks again. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the game we didn't cover?
No, I mean, if you're into kind of 80s cyberpunk espionage kind of stuff, I think you'll really.
And who's not?
And who is? Yeah, who should? It should sell itself, but we're in charge of it. So, yeah. But no, yeah, check out the page. We have a lot of information on there. The whole Kickstarter page, I think, is the equivalent of opening up like a pen and paper handbook, skipping a lot of the stuff, but just kind of heading straight for the middle. And we kind of have a good amount of system detail in there. So if you're into rule set kind of stuff, we have a lot of that in there. It should be a fun rule set. I think people will like it. Good combat.
And it'll be the Serpent and the Staglands expansion will be using this rule set and 3D art like this. So if you are looking forward to the expansion, it's going to be like this. We're selling it as a castle heist, which should be fun.
Yeah, we originally came up with this whole thing as for the Serpent and the Staglands. We had that free expansion coming. We wanted to come up with this rule set for it, and that's kind of how this game came about too. But yeah, they're both kind of espionage related. One fantasy, one sci-fi.
You'll be sneaking around with your crossbow instead of your shotgun.
Yeah, right.
I just hope all this cyber security stuff doesn't get you guys on some kind of a watch list.
Hope not.
Yeah.
And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Go pledge to that Kickstarter right away if you are at all interested. Really like to see these guys make their goals and keep making great games and hit some of their stretch goals. That'd be awesome. So just go to the link in the show notes or do a search on Google for Copper Dreams. You should be able to find it really easily. As always, I want to thank you very much for your support of this show. Really means a lot to me, guys. You have no idea. You might feel like $1 a show, what difference is it going to make to him? But it really does make a huge difference, and I'm very grateful to all of you who have stepped up to do that. If you would like to support the show, just go to that link to the Patreon site, or you can go to the matchat.us site. There's some PayPal options there. There's also GOG affiliate links and lots of ways to support the show. It doesn't have to be one of those. I even really appreciate it when people just tell others about the show. I talk about it on Twitter or Facebook. All that stuff is great, guys. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right, what about that news from the Matt Cave? Whoa, got a couple of items here, a couple of big items here. Good juicy stuff from our friend Stig. Always good for news items. So the first one he sent me, and I've heard about this from a couple of you other guys as well. It's about Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones. Now this is a Lovecraftian, H.P. Lovecraft of course, a computer role-playing game of horror, loss, and madness. And it's from a developer called Cultic Games, and they're out of Istanbul, Turkey. It's kind of interesting. And I don't think I've had a Turkish designer team on the show. That'd be fun. But anyway, they got 25 days left to raise $61,000. Or that's their goal, $61,000 goal. The gameplay experience promises a mix of rich role-playing and turn-based tactical combat. Hell yeah. In a 2D environment with an original illustrative, anyway, graphic style. In Stygian, you will create your main character from scratch with access to several archetypal backgrounds, each with its own origin story, skills, traits, and belief system, the last of which determines how your character replenishes lost sanity, as well as presenting unique dialogue choices. That's Stygian, Reign of the Old Ones. That definitely sounds interesting. If you like a Call of Cthulhu, that sort of thing, I think this would be right up your alley. Stig also wrote in about this ELEX, maybe it's ELEX, E-L-E-X. This is a handcrafted action role-playing experience from the creators of the Gothic series. So you might remember I reviewed a couple of those in retrospectives, really great games. This one, however, is set in a brand new post-apocalyptic science fantasy universe that puts players into a huge, seamless world full of original characters, mutated creatures, deep moral choices, and powerful action. So Stig and I were looking at these screenshots, and you can let us know what you think. But to me and to Stig, this kind of looks like a Fallout meets Skyrim. He talked about, kind of reminded him of Arcanum in some ways. But it is an interesting looking universe. I would definitely like to explore this place, and it looks, I mean, these screenshots are amazing. So go check that out. That's not a Kickstarter or anything. I think that's just some news or a website. Okay, what else do we have here? All right, so this is a bit of a back comment, I guess. Or anyway, a guy named From Nemo, or a guy named Nemo's Channel, made a comment on my previous video, which was a Might and Magic 7 retrospective, and I really wanted to let everybody know about his comment. So he's talking about something called Grayface. This is a mod you can get for Might and Magic 7, but there's also stuff for 6, and I think I also saw a mod for 8. But anyway, we're talking about Grayface for Might and Magic 7. And Nemo writes, this patch encompasses pretty much all the other fixes. It includes the official patches, some fan patches, many bug fixes, a music fix for looping the music instead of just playing once, mouse look, that's huge, a 2x speed option, huge, custom keyboard controls, etc. His patch also fixes dual wielding in Might and Magic 6. It used to add up the speed of both weapons and make you slower. So I guess that's been fixed. I think it also includes a resolution fix for playing in windowed mode, but I'm not sure exactly how that works with other mods. And there are also other mods for that. Anyway, I took a look at this Grayface mod, and like I said, he's got mods for the other games as well, but it looks like pretty much must-have software. Unless you just really want to have that authentic, fully accurate experience, I think these mods are definitely the way to go. And so I'll post a link to those in the show notes, and I'll hopefully remember to go back and put those into my notes for the review of that game as well. Anyway, thank you very much to Stig and Nemo for those really good information, and I appreciate that you sent it in to me. All right, so what about that ale of the week? Well, the first one is not really an ale, but it's a rummy cola, splash of lime, never give up the booty. So my brother Luke got me this, and I thought it was a soda, some kind of weird soda drink, but actually it is a action figure, Fizz Kids, and it's a little pirate with a pirate rat with the sword. So old Luke knows me pretty well, I would say. So this is pretty awesome. Apparently this is based on a comic, which I'm not familiar with. I'll put that on. I'll figure out how to get that back on later. But anyway, it's a really cool little figurine there. And it's a rat, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so for the actual beverage, though, I have this Silk Road Mediterranean Refresher. And this one is really interesting. It's got a lot of particles floating all around in there. It looks a little intimidating. But it's cucumber with mint, carbonated beverage. So apparently this comes from Persian recipes, ancient or legendary Persian recipe. It's got organic ingredients in there. Eastern inspired, Western desired is their catchphrase by, what was it, Payam? Organic cane sugar, non-GMO, no preservatives. The glutens come free of charge. Always good to see. It even has vegans in here. Maybe that's some ground up vegan. Those little particles floating around in there. Let's see. Silk Road soda from Roseville, California. Anyway, this looks kind of strange and weird, so I thought I'd give this a try. So let's get this Silk Road open and see what it's all about. All right, so I got some of this Silk Road here in the rather excellent drinking horn. And I got to tell you on this one, man, the aroma is intense. I can even smell it from here. It's a strong cucumber aroma on this. It's even more pungent, I think, than if you had actual cucumbers shoved up your nose. If you like a cucumber aroma, man, you're going to love this. You can just open up the bottle, let it sort of fill up your room with the scent of cucumber. I actually like the smell of cucumber, so I'm fine with that. Actually, smells really nice in my opinion, but you probably don't want to put your nose up there too close. Let's give it a taste there. Oh. Well, you get a bit of the mint in the taste. You definitely taste the sort of cucumbers, and there's a sour, sort of a lemony, citrusy flavor there. That's quite nice. Kind of a little bit of a grassy taste as well. Maybe sort of a lemongrass, maybe you would say. Anyways, you get a lot of flavor with this, that's for sure. Man, I think they've really nailed this. It's just the right amount of sweet to sort of counteract some of those other flavors there, make it a little bit more of a complex experience, I would say. Let's see, cucumbers with mint. And so I would say you definitely taste the cucumbers and follow that maybe by some citrusy taste. Mint. That mint is very subtle. Now, I guess I can sort of taste it, but it's kind of overpowered, I would say, by the cucumbers and the citrusy flavors, which is fine. Anyway, I really like this. You get a lot of flavor here. You definitely know that this is not an ordinary soda. So I'm going to go a full 5 out of 5 on this. If you like cucumbers with a little bit of a minty, sort of a citrusy flavor, I think you're really going to love this. I haven't tasted anything even remotely like this before. So I have no problem giving this 5 out of 5. I think you'll find this a very interesting drink. All right, so let's wrap this up with a quotation. And I was looking for quotes about marketing, and I found this one that I thought really hits the nail on the head for me. And it's by Joe Chernoff. It goes something like this. Good marketing makes the company look smart. Great marketing makes the customer feel smart. So wrap your head around that, and see you guys next week.
You gonna kill me now, Snake?
I'm too tired. Maybe later.